Hello everyone, my name is Derek DeNicola, writer, producer here out of Los Angeles, California, and I have to say I should be writing right now. However, I am not, because today I'm going to take a little bit of time to talk about the styles in which you approach your writing, most commonly known as plotter, pantser, and plancer. So there's going to be some fundamental principles that you always have to adhere to no matter what approach you take. Everybody is different, but I stream live on Twitch, and I have a bunch of different writers who have a bunch of different styles. Some want to write theme first, some have plotted 6 generations of the world that they live in, doing their world building first without having developed like any more myopic views of characters or scenes that they like to see in order to tell the story. All very valid, and everybody's brain works differently. If I were to give you some advice, it would be advice isn't always for everyone, so take it with a grain of salt. Because rarely do I know what I'm doing either. I feel like every time I start a new story, I'm starting from the beginning, and I have to remind myself that I have the capabilities because I feel like an imposter every new story. So yes, let's talk about it. A plotter. A plotter is somebody who plans everything ahead. This is very type A. This is your beats, your outline, your structure, your character arcs. This is all done before you open up your file and start typing on page 1. Here's the trap that I've seen, is people getting hung up in the plotting and the world building, so much so that they will arrest themselves and never actually move forward. I think a good rule of thumb that I've followed, and it's not my advice, it's the advice of James Mangold, if you want to look him up. He suggested trying to always get to about 90% done. If you're definitely a plotter and you want everything to be absolutely perfect before you sit down and have no problems writing, then you should know that nothing's ever done and nothing is ever perfect. So if you can convince yourself that you're at least 90% done, the way that you'll really cross the finish line is to just start after that. The second writing style is pantser. We have come up with this term based on the expression writing by the seat of your pants. If you're not the kind of person who sits down and outlines and looks at character arcs or wants to do a lot of world building, but you're just eager to sit down and do the ticky-tackying, then you write by discovery. You find the story through your writing. And in some ways, you allow yourself to let your mistakes or your lack of knowledge drive the timeline of your story. Allow yourself to discover things in a moment. However, when it comes to the end quality of your piece, make no mistake that you will be going back, you will be starting from the beginning again, and you'll start to have to apply the elements of everything that the plotter has naturally done. You'll want to shape your story into coherent structure. You're going to want to throw in callbacks. You'll start to realize themes, and you'll have to go back and pepper in motifs and pepper in things that you didn't realize were true about your story until you got to the end. Like I said, there's no wrong way of doing things. As a matter of fact, I think most people are the third type. They are plantsers, which is, of course, the combination of plotter and pantser. This is where you're somewhere in the middle and you may know major beats or 1 or 2 of your character arcs, presumably your lead character arcs, but it's still where you can leave room for yourself to improvise or discover your scenes in an organic way. I think most people fall here, but I think it's also important for you as a writer, if you're an aspiring writer, to try all. You may end up being a plotter and not even know it. If you really enjoy pre-writing, which is kind of something that I do, all of the writing that you do before you sit down and hammer out your story. Where do things take place? What was the lifestyle like in that era of time? What are people's clothes? Also, outside of just like the minutia and the details of the world building, who is telling the story and why are they telling the story and why now? And how are they motivated? And does their motivation drive every single beat that I plan on telling in the story? What is every single beat that I plan on telling in the story? And from a plotter point of view, I like to have a 3-act structure, the most meta view of a story, and then go in and fill out all of the beats. You can fill out beats, and I think for screenwriters, the most common one would be the Blake Snyder beat sheet. You can do Joseph Campbell's Hero's Journey. You can go and find all of the typical story beats that we have determined as human beings are the common story structure that we've told throughout the history of time. And then start going from big to small. Inside those acts, what are those beats? And then what are the scenes inside of those beats? And then inside of those scenes, what are your scene beats? Have an overall beat. What does your character want for the entirety of your story? And then what does your character want in each scene that they're in? They're always trying to move forward in some way, even if that moving forward is trying to remain in stasis, stay in their safe place. Sometimes the world revolves around your character, but sometimes your character changes the world that they're in too. Now, whether you're a pantser, plotter, or plantser, there are some core truths that you're going to have to adhere to. Labeling yourselves one of these types of writers will not free you from the bonds of needing conflict, of needing stakes, structure, and eventually some sort of payoff. I'm sure you want your audience to feel a particular way about the story that you are telling. So no matter how you start, just know that revision is part of the process and that you're going to end up revising and shaping your draft into something functional. Another trap that I see, especially from the pantsers, just know that like a beautiful vibe piece does not rescue a story. I've said this before, like when you start to write from vibe or feeling, if it starts to feel like an epic journal entry that you kind of wanted to vomit out because you wanted to start because you felt compelled to convey a feeling, just know that once you get to your second act, you're going to start floundering. It happens every time, unless you're a highly skilled writer, more skilled than I. Maybe Stephen King could do it, but I certainly can't. And the second act is where things really, really get muddied. Most people have a really strong grasp of how they want to start a story. A really smart writer will force themselves to grasp how they want it to end, but rarely do we know all of the meaty second act where we debate our choices, where we force our character into conflict and force our character to deal with conflict in different ways and force their perspectives to change. These are more philosophical debates. They're more fun and games. If you're referring to the Blake Snyder beat sheets, where you have to fill your story with adventure and antics and payoffs in a way that still move your character's internal story forward as well. And most of the time, that doesn't just come out of your heart. So to clarify, your writing style is really all about how you get to the page, but once it's on the page, just know that those same rules will apply. Before I even knew these terms, I was struggling to identify what my own style was as a writer. And style is subjective. It's completely you. You owe it to yourself to investigate your own voice and find out for yourself. But determining whether you are plotter, pantser, or plantser could be a step in the right direction. My name is Derek DeNicola, writer-producer here in Los Angeles. I hope that made sense. I just go on these epic rambles. I hope you appreciate them. But be sure to follow my Twitch live streams and like and subscribe to the YouTube. Everything! I've got links everywhere. I just appreciate you stopping by and listening. So,